Under the soft glow of 2 moons, the royal city of Avelis IV looked like a dream carved from glass. Every building shimmered with silver and blue light, and long bridges of crystal stretched across deep valleys filled with mist. The air hummed with gentle energy, a sound humans had never heard before. Captain Ryan Hale stood in the middle of the great hall, feeling very small. He was the first human ever allowed to meet the alien rulers face to face. His mission was to build peace between Earth and the Avelian Empire after long years of fear and misunderstanding. He had trained for months before this moment. He had studied their history, their customs, their gestures. He knew never to raise his voice or make sudden movements. He had practiced the bow that showed respect and learned the right words to greet them. Yet none of that training prepared him for the sight that waited at the end of the hall. The princess of Avelis IV, Scifi, stood on a high step, dressed in white light. Her gown seemed made of mist and stars, and tiny crystals floated around her like dust from a comet. She was tall and graceful, her eyes bright as molten glass. When she looked at him, it felt as if she could see his heartbeat. Ryan froze. For a moment, he forgot every diplomatic line he had memorized. His throat felt dry. The guards with silver armor and shining spears stood perfectly still. The queen and council members watched with interest, their expressions calm and unreadable. "Welcome, human," Scifi said, her voice soft but powerful. "You come from a world we have only seen through screens. Tell us, what do you see when you look at us?" It was a simple question, meant to test his understanding. He knew the right answer was to speak about unity, cooperation, or admiration for their culture. But when he looked at her, all logic left him. He could only think of how unreal she seemed, how her presence filled the entire hall. Words tumbled out before he could stop them. "You're so beautiful I can't speak." The words echoed in the great hall, bouncing off crystal walls. Silence followed. Not a single breath could be heard. Even the sound of the glowing fountain stopped, or maybe time itself did. Every alien eye turned toward him. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. The queen's expression remained calm, but her gaze shifted toward her daughter. Princess Scifi's face changed. Her glowing eyes widened slightly as if she had just heard something impossible. Aliens did not speak of beauty the way humans did. To them, appearance was a reflection of balance and symmetry, not something emotional. For her, no one had ever said such a thing, not in that tone, not with that honesty. Ryan's heart pounded. He realized what he had done and wanted to vanish. The one thing he had promised himself was to never say anything unplanned. He opened his mouth to apologize, but the princess lifted her hand slightly. "Enough," she said. Her voice was calm again, but something in it trembled very faintly. "We will speak of this tomorrow." The meeting ended early. Guards led Ryan back to his guest room, a shining chamber with walls of living crystal that changed color with his mood. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his hands. His mission might already be ruined. One careless sentence could be seen as disrespect or worse. He imagined Earth's diplomats shaking their heads, wondering how one human could fail so fast. Meanwhile, high above him in her private quarters, Scifi walked through her crystal garden. The night air smelled of cold rain and light. Flowers made of soft energy glowed around her feet. She stopped beside a pond that reflected the twin moons. Her reflection looked calm, but inside her heart was unsettled. She repeated the human's words quietly. "You're so beautiful I can't speak." No one in her life had ever said something like that. To her people, emotions were private and dangerous. They believed feelings clouded judgment. Yet when she remembered his voice, a warmth spread through her chest. The sound of his tone had no hidden goal, no flattery, no calculation. It had been pure and real. She closed her eyes. The humans were strange creatures, fragile but brave. They had crossed endless space to reach her world, not with weapons but with hope. Maybe, she thought, that made them worth understanding. In his room, Ryan couldn't sleep. He looked out at the glowing city through the clear wall. He remembered the moment her eyes met his, how he felt something unexplainable. He told himself it was admiration, not anything deeper. Still, the memory stayed. He wondered if she would even allow him to appear again tomorrow, or if he would be sent back to Earth in shame. At dawn, the sky turned lavender, and thin light poured over the towers. Ryan heard soft footsteps outside. A young alien attendant entered, her voice polite. "The princess has ended all morning sessions. She requires silence today." Ryan nodded silently. That was a bad sign. He spent the morning writing a formal apology on the glowing tablet they had given him. He wrote about respect in culture, about misunderstanding, about the difference between words on Earth and words here. But when he read it, it sounded lifeless. It didn't match what he had truly felt when he looked at her. Far above, Saylara stood again in her garden. She had dismissed her counsel. The alien sky shimmered with moving light. She touched one of the crystal petals beside her, and it opened to reveal a drop of shining dew. The drop reflected an image of the human's face. She studied it for a long time. There was something in his eyes she didn't understand, something soft and fearless at once. Her advisor entered quietly, bowing. "Princess, shall we proceed with the next session?" Saylara shook her head. "Not today. There is something I must think about." When night returned, both of them looked at the same moons, one from the royal tower, the other from a small balcony below. Ryan whispered to himself, "Maybe honesty isn't always wrong. Maybe it's just too human." Saylara, watching the stars, spoke the same line in her own language, "Too human." The sound of it felt gentle on her tongue. The words he had spoken still played in her mind like soft music that wouldn't fade. In her world of logic and perfection, his clumsy truth had left a mark. She didn't know why it mattered, but it did. And deep inside, she knew tomorrow she would see him again. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to understand what kind of creature could speak with such foolish courage and make her heart pause for the first time in her life. That night, the city lights dimmed under the twin moons. The human envoy and the alien princess, though separated by walls and culture, were both awake, caught between duty and something they couldn't name. For the first time in Avelis 4's long history, a single sentence had crossed the vast distance between two worlds, and left both of them speechless. Morning light covered the crystal city in soft gold as Captain Ryan Hale stood by his window, still unsure what the new day would bring. He hadn't slept much. His mind replayed the moment he spoke those words to the alien princess. Every time he thought about it, his heart tightened. He imagined the diplomats on Earth already calling him a disaster. Maybe he would be sent home before he could even explain. He heard a knock on his door. A tall alien guard entered, his armor shining with pale blue light. "Captain Hale," the guard said in a calm voice. "Her Highness requests your presence in the royal garden." Ryan blinked in surprise. He had expected punishment or silence, not a personal meeting. He straightened his uniform, took a deep breath, and followed the guard through long glass corridors that curved like rivers of light. Outside, the air was cool and filled with the gentle hum of unseen energy. The garden was unlike anything he had ever seen. Flowers glowed softly, floating above the ground like living lanterns. The air smelled faintly of silver rain. At the center stood Princess Saylara, wearing a simple gown that shimmered like moonlight on water. She was looking at the twin moons still visible in the morning sky, her hands clasped in front of her. Ryan stopped several steps away and bowed his head. "Your Highness," he said carefully, "if my words yesterday brought offense, I offer my deepest apology." "I meant no disrespect." Saylara turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable at first, her glowing eyes steady. "Human," she said softly. "Yesterday you said something that has never been said to me before. I wish to understand it." He hesitated. "Understand? What, Your Highness?" "You said I was beautiful and that you could not speak," she replied. "Among my kind, such words are strange. Beauty here is a measure of form and energy. It is not something we speak about with emotion, yet your tone carried something else. It sounded alive." Ryan nodded slowly, choosing his words with care. "Where I come from, beauty isn't just about how someone looks. It's about something that moves your heart. It's not something you plan to say. It just happens." Saylara tilted her head, curious. "So your words were not meant to gain favor or to manipulate?" He smiled faintly. "No, Your Highness. They escaped before I could stop them. On Earth, sometimes our hearts speak faster than our minds." For a long moment, she said nothing. The wind passed through the glowing trees, making soft musical sounds. Then Saylara stepped closer, her voice quieter. "When you spoke, I felt something unfamiliar, a silence within me. My people are trained from birth to control all feelings. Yet your words broke that control for a moment." Ryan didn't know what to say. He looked down at the shining floor. "Maybe that's what makes us human," he said finally. "We make mistakes, but sometimes they lead to something true. The princess watched him carefully. There was a softness in her gaze now. "Perhaps your mistake was—" "Not wrong," she said at last. He looked up in surprise, and she gave a faint, almost invisible smile. "Come," she said, gesturing toward a nearby path. "Walk with me." They moved through the garden slowly. The plants glowed brighter as they passed, sensing her presence. She asked him about Earth, about the seas, the winds, the cities filled with light. He told her about rain and how it felt when it touched your skin. She listened as if hearing a fairy tale. "Rain," she repeated softly. "Water that falls from the sky. On our world, rain is light. It burns softly but leaves no wetness. Your rain sounds gentle." "It is," he said. "And it reminds people that everything starts again, clean and new." She looked at him for a long moment. "Your world must be strange," she said, "and full of feeling." Ryan smiled slightly. "It is, and maybe that's why we want peace with yours. We want to learn, not fight." For the first time since their meeting, Sayalara's expression warmed. "My council fears humans," she admitted. "They think your kind acts without control. But perhaps control is not always strength. Perhaps it is a kind of cage." They stopped near a glowing tree whose branches curved like silver rivers. Saylara placed her hand on its surface, and the crystal leaves lit up with soft blue light. "When you spoke yesterday," she said, "I felt as if you had opened a door I did not know existed. I wish to close it, but instead I keep looking inside." Ryan took a quiet breath. "Sometimes, Your Highness, the doors we fear the most lead us to the things we need to see." Her gaze lingered on him, thoughtful and calm. The faint light on her cheeks brightened, the alien sign of emotion. "You speak as if you are older than your years," she said. "War teaches fast," he replied softly. They stood in silence for a while, listening to the hum of the living world around them. Then a messenger approached from the distance, bowing deeply. "Princess Saylara, the council requests your presence for the treaty decision." She nodded. "Tell them I will arrive shortly." When the messenger left, she turned back to Ryan. "Today we will sign a peace treaty with your people. But tell me truthfully, Captain Hale, do you believe it will last?" He looked at her steadily. "If we build it on fear, it will break. But if we build it on understanding, even a small one, it will stand." Her eyes glowed brighter for a second, and she gave a faint nod. "Then perhaps your words yesterday were not foolish. Perhaps they were the beginning of understanding." Later that day, the council gathered in the great hall. The air shimmered with the sound of energy waves. Representatives from both sides stood facing each other. The treaty was placed on a floating screen of light. When Ryan and Saylara both pressed their hands to it, the glowing symbol of unity appeared, a merging of two stars. Applause echoed through the chamber. Yet in the middle of all the celebration, Ryan's eyes met hers. For a moment, everything went quiet again, just like the first day. She looked at him, her expression calm but her gaze warm in a way that no one else would notice. When the ceremony ended, Ryan prepared to leave. His ship was ready to return to Earth. As he walked toward the platform, he heard a soft voice call out behind him. "Captain Hale," he turned. Saylara stood at the top of the stairs, the light from the twin suns falling across her face. The guards and advisors stepped back, sensing something private between them. She raised her voice slightly, enough for him to hear. "You were wrong about one thing." He looked puzzled. "What do you mean, Your Highness?" Her lips curved in the smallest smile. "You said you could not speak. But you did, and your words changed a world." For a moment, Ryan didn't know what to say. Then he bowed deeply, his voice steady and full of quiet emotion. "Then I'm glad I spoke, Princess." She nodded once, her eyes shining like dawn. "So am I, human." As his ship lifted into the sky, the princess watched from her balcony. The light from the engines reflected in her eyes. And for the first time in her life, she felt something beyond reason. A quiet, endless warmth that refused to fade. Up in the ship, Ryan sat near the window, looking back at the planet that shimmered like a jewel. He knew the mission was complete, but deep down he also knew something had begun. Something greater than peace, something that connected two hearts across the stars.